This is BBC World News Today. I'm Duncan Golostani. Our top stories. It's a change that could revolutionise football. Video assistant referees are set to be used at this year's World Cup in Russia. Now President Trump says he'll tax European car imports in the latest spat over trade. The Philippines government warned her not to investigate alleged police killings. The UN investigator tells us she won't be intimidated.
The threats have also been very sexist, misogynist, sexualized. But one thing for sure is that they will not silence me.
And on the eve of the Oscars, we look at how film schools are trying to cut out gender discrimination. Hello and welcome to World News Today. In one of the biggest shake-ups in football for years, it looks like the World Cup in Russia will use video technology to assist referees. The system, known as VAR, lets referees review controversial incidents like disputed goals or penalties. The body, which sets the rules for world football, has voted to approve it after a series of top-level trials, even though some of the decisions have proved controversial. Here's our sports news reporter, Richard Conway.
From Diego Maradona's hand of God to injustice in the biggest games, football has long opposed technology to help officials make the important decisions. But after an historic vote, all that has changed, with video assistant referees, or VAR as it's known, finally given the go-ahead.
VAR is good for football, is good for refereeing. It brings more fairness in the game, and for these reasons we have decided to approve.
VAR will be used to correct errors relating to goals, penalties, straight red cards and mistaken identity. Nearly 1,000 games have formed part of a 2-year VAR experiment. Tottenham's match against Rochdale last week was included in the trial, but was criticised given lengthy delays while the referee reviewed incidents, leading to claims technology is killing the atmosphere and pace of the match. But one of the architects of the new system told me there's evidence that video assistance is working.
On sort of clear error situations, the accuracy of the referee's decisions went from initially 93% up to around 99%. Of course, there are grey areas where an incident could be a penalty, could not be a penalty, and they will always remain grey areas.
VAR will almost certainly now be used at this summer's World Cup. However, several Premier League clubs are thought to be more cautious and may opt to delay its implementation, with football's lawmakers admitting there's still work to be done.
I think the communication to the crowd, the speeding up of reviews, the flow of the game, the spectacle, I think has all got to be worked on. But we've also got to have the confidence to sell it to people. It is a change, but it's actually a small change to make a big difference.
Football's leaders want to eliminate game-changing mistakes, but as the video trial has shown, anyone who thinks technology will stop controversy may want to think again. Richard Conway, BBC News.
With us now is Richard Jolly, football writer for The Guardian, ESPN and others. He joins me from Bolton in northwest England. So, Richard, what do you think then? Good thing or bad thing?
I think on balance a good thing. What we've certainly seen in this country is the trial hasn't gone entirely swimmingly and there are a lot of doubters. However, as FIFA have said, the survey they've conducted has not just been based on this season's FA Cup in England, it's been based on a lot more games. It's been trialled in Italy, it's been trialled in Germany, it's been trialled in the Confederations Cup. And they say it's between 93 and 99% success rate using VAR on these big decisions. And I think technology is coming. I think it's been coming for a while. And once it comes, it generally doesn't get removed. It's just a question of how well you implement it and how and where you implement it.
The data certainly seems to point in that direction, and it would remove some of those infamous examples of injustices. You might think back to 1986 and Maradona and the hand of God. But does it, though, as critics say, take the emotion out of the game, the speed and the heart of it?
It has done to some degree in some of the trials we've had in this country, and I think it is pertinent that the critics do include some football managers. Mauricio Pochettino said that after the Tottenham game last week. Huddersfield manager David Wagner said that after VAR was used in their FA Cup defeat to Manchester United, even though, as he admitted on that day, it benefited his team because Manchester United had a goal ruled out. And so I think the crucial thing in that respect is the amount of time it takes, because we have seen a couple of games where we've had really about 8 minutes added on to the first halves, both in the Tottenham-Rochdale game and a Liverpool-West Brom game where it should have been about 8 or 10 minutes, which is obviously far too many. So we need those decisions to be made a bit quicker, and we need referees and the VAR officials to be a bit clearer about what they review, rather than reviewing absolutely everything and taking time out of the game where it doesn't need to be taken.
Richard, do you think it would be better if we could hear the conversations that are going on? Because, of course, maybe part of the frustration is that there is just this silence as people wait, with a referee putting his finger up to his ear. Perhaps if we could hear what was going on, would that make it better?
Yeah, I think it definitely would. I think what fans are looking for is greater transparency and greater understanding. Certainly in rugby, we do hear referees talking, and that helps very much understand why they've come to a decision. I think the other thing, which is something that FIFA seem to understand in what they've said today, is that there needs to be communication with fans within the stadium so that they know why a decision has been made. Because at the moment, we've not had that. Now they're talking about having
Richard,
big screens.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but we're up against the clock of our own here, but we appreciate your thoughts anyway. Richard Jolly there, football writer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on now, Donald Trump has stepped up his war of words over trade tariffs. He's now threatened to slap a tax on car imports from the European Union. It follows Mr. Trump's call for heavy tariffs on foreign steel, a move that's been criticised by world leaders. Chris Buckler reports now from Washington.
Steel is essential to America's economy. But inside the US for many years, it has been an industry in decline. President Trump blames cheap imports.
Our trade deficit essentially equals the cumulative trade surplus of the rest of the world, and that's no longer acceptable.
His solution of new tariffs has sparked fears of a trade war and led to increasingly heated language from many of America's trading partners, including China, Mexico and Canada.
We are impressing upon the American administration the unacceptable nature of these proposals that are going to hurt them every bit as much as they will hurt us.
The president announced his plan for 25% tariffs for steel and 10% for aluminium at a meeting with industry executives. But it came as a surprise to many, apparently including some inside the White House, where details of the policy are still being worked out. European leaders made a point of singling out the most American of products.
We will impose tariffs on Harley-Davidson, on bourbon, on blue jeans, Levi's blue jeans. This is, well, highly regrettable. We are not en route to start trade wars. We would like to have a reasonable relationship with the United States of America, but we cannot simply bury our head in the sand.
President Trump himself doesn't seem worried, tweeting trade wars are good and easy to win. Words probably not intended for the international community, but instead communities in the former industrial heartland of the US, where some old steel mills lie derelict. It was here President Trump found huge support with his America First message. However, it's the modern supply of steel that worries many businesses here as well as abroad.
After some time, given the pain this will exert on the US economy, he will have to backtrack. Now, is it tomorrow? Is it 6 months from now? Is it 1 year from now? I don't know.
They are concerned their costs will rise with tariffs, and that could prove to be the hard truth of this protectionist policy. Chris Buckler, BBC News, Washington.
Let's take a look at some more stories making the news now. And thousands of UK homes are still without electricity, and motorists and rail passengers face continuing disruption as the UK struggles with the bitter weather. Snowdrifts are blocking some major roads and many rural communities remain cut off. The US Secret Service says a man is reported to have shot himself outside the White House in Washington. No one else was injured in the incident. President Trump is currently away at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida. The funeral has taken place in Slovakia of the murdered investigative journalist Jan Kuciak. Hundreds of mourners attended the ceremony in the village of Stiavnik, a day after the burial of his fiancée, who was shot dead at the same time. Mr. Kuciak's last article focused on alleged ties between the Italian mafia and officials. The government of the Philippines has warned the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Human Rights not to try to investigate alleged abuses. A presidential spokesman claimed Agnes Calamar was biased. Activists say President Rodrigo Duterte's war on drugs has killed as many as 12,000 people. A little earlier, I spoke to Agnes Calamar, who gave me her reaction to the government's comments.
Well, I mean, they have made those comments for a while now. It has become more threatening in recent days, probably as a reaction to the Human Rights Council happening in Geneva right now. The threats have included throwing me into a river with the fish. The threats have also been very sexist, misogynist, sexualized. They are unacceptable, and we should not normalize this kind of language. But one thing for sure is that they will not silence me.
They say, the government in Manila, that they don't want to be prejudged. And in reference to that, I think they're talking about your comments about extrajudicial killings that you have made in the past. Do you accept that you have, to some extent, made your mind up on what is going on in the Philippines?
Absolutely not. I've always referred to alleged extrajudicial executions. I have spoken about the numerous allegations I have received, including here in Geneva through numerous communications from the Philippines itself. I have not demonstrated any biases. I have responded to my mandate, which is to call on the government to provide information about how they are dealing with those allegations, what kind of investigations they have undertaken. As far as I know, up to now, there has been no impartial, professional and prompt investigation into the some 1,000 killings they have admitted. They have admitted about 4,000 killings. As of now, I still have not received any information about the kind of investigation they have undertaken. I am working according to the international human rights standard, and all my questions to them have been based on those standards. They are not about, about biases. They are about asking the government to provide me with the information that that I, as a special rapporteur, are entitled to ask them.
If you're not allowed to go in your official capacity, where does that leave the investigation? What can you do if you're not authorised to go?
Beside me, there are a number of other mechanisms. First and foremost, we need to highlight the fact that the International Criminal Court 2 weeks ago has announced that it will undertake a preliminary investigation into those killings on the basis that they may amount to crimes against humanity. A number of member states have called on the United Nations to undertake an investigation into those alleged extrajudicial killings.
The UN investigator determined to probe abuses in the Philippines. Do stay with us. Still to come, all the sport, including the results of Europe's top football matches as Liverpool take on Newcastle.
From Lagos to Lilongwe, Addis Ababa to Accra, we cover business stories across the length and breadth of the African continent, speaking to the titans, the traders and the entrepreneurs. So join me, Laurent Tumbele, on Africa Business Report on BBC World News.
Sunday sees Italians go to the polls after a tense campaign in which the voices of the political extremes have been making a lot of noise. And in the midst of all that, the former Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi has been trying to stage a comeback. Join me, Karen Giannoni, in Rome for continuing coverage of Italy's general election here on BBC World News.
with the European Champions League into the knockout stages. You can follow all the action here on BBC World News and on the website bbc.com/football.
Welcome back. This is BBC World News Today. I'm Duncan Golostani and these are the latest headlines. A change that could revolutionise football. Video assistant referees are set to be used at this year's World Cup in Russia. And President Trump says he'll tax European car imports in the latest spat over trade. The world's biggest investment management firm is stepping up pressure on companies that make and sell guns after the Florida school shooting. BlackRock says it may offer investors the choice of not investing in gun firms. It follows the decision by a number of companies to reduce their links to the arms industry. Well, I'm delighted to say that we're joined by Catherine Howarth, who is the CEO of Share Action that promotes responsible investment to serve communities. Welcome to the studio.
Thanks.
So, is this actually new? Because BlackRock and many other companies offer screened, protected funds, ethical funds, if you like.
So, yes, it is new, because what BlackRock is saying today is that in addition to providing consumers and customers of its investment products with the opportunity to invest without buying gun companies, it will use its extraordinarily large shareholder power to push those companies to adopt far more responsible practices. And that is fantastic because BlackRock is the biggest fund manager in the world, probably the most powerful company in the world, actually, just because it holds these shares in every other company, in every sector. And earlier this year, the CEO of BlackRock, Larry Fink, wrote to companies, all the companies in their portfolios, saying, we expect you to show how you make a positive contribution to society. And then along comes this shocking event, only the latest, on the 14th of February, 17 children mown down. And what we see is BlackRock actually stepping up and really saying, yes, we are going to be a really active shareholder. We are going to have a dialogue with these companies. And ultimately, we have the voting power to back that up. So I think that's a very, very positive development.
Willing to flex that muscle, a Wall Street company, a huge Wall Street company?
Well, there's a lot of demand for this. You see, BlackRock for years has been very coy and cautious about using its shareholder power, but it recognises that consumers want that. That we realise, particularly in the case of gun control, but actually many social issues, we're seeing sort of deadlock politically and we're not getting the breakthroughs that we want. And we realise, well, do you know what? We can vote with our money. We can actually, insofar as our pension funds and our investment funds have holdings in the companies that are doing things we're not happy about, there's this huge opportunity to make a positive difference through our shareholder power.
Just briefly, do you think it's then time for activist investors to invest in those gun companies and try and affect change internally if they're so inclined?
Well, I think we're going to see that, and I think that would be very interesting development. And then, if there are shareholder resolutions at these companies, then BlackRock, of course, like other large asset managers, will have this very interesting question of how they cast their votes at the AGMs on those resolutions.
It has been fascinating talking to you. Thank you very much. Catherine Howard
Pleasure.
there. Thank you. Well, let's go to the sport now with Hugh Ferris. Hello, Hugh.
Hello, Duncan. Mo Salah scored for a 7th game in a row to help Liverpool go second in the Premier League. They beat Newcastle and their former boss, Rafa Benitez, 2-0. Sees Newcastle slipped to 16th in the table. They're just 2 points above the relegation zone.
You always try to improve things when you see them, but you have to score in the right moment and you have to keep a clean sheet. That's what we did. So 2-0 is a fantastic result. If you would have asked me 2 weeks ago, what do you wish for West Ham and Newcastle, I would say twice 1-0. I buy it immediately, so now it's even better. Completely happy.
Well, in today's other results, Burnley had their first win since December, beating Everton. A late Riyad Mahrez equaliser gave Leicester a point at Bournemouth. Goalless between two teams threatened by relegation, Southampton and Stoke, while Swansea are out of the bottom three. In fact, they're up to 13th, rising 5 places because of that big win 4-1 against West Ham. And Spurs won again 2-0 at Wembley against Huddersfield. West Brom rooted to the bottom of the table. They lost again at Watford. In Italy, Serie A, Juventus have reduced the gap to leaders Napoli to just a point. They won 1-0 at Lazio earlier on Saturday, while Napoli currently losing 3-1 at home to third-placed Roma. Juventus will also have a game in hand once Napoli finish, so the title race very much hotting up in Italy. Just a point between the top two, it looks like it's going to be. In Spain, Real Madrid hoping to bounce back from their latest defeat in La Liga to Espanyol earlier in the week. They are winning 2-1 against Getafe. Bale and Ronaldo with the goals in that one. Earlier, Sevilla, who are fifth, beat Athletic Bilbao 2-0 as one of the highlights from Spain. There'll be plenty of interested eyes on Brooklyn later on Saturday for the heavyweight title fight between WBC champion Deontay Wilder and Luis Ortiz of Cuba. One of them will no doubt be British fighter Anthony Joshua, who holds all three of the other heavyweight belts. And if he wins his own title defence later in the month, will no doubt face the winner.
He never faced nobody like me. There's nobody in the ring he's ever faced that's been like me, that's been vocal, ready to knock his head off, ready to do all the things that I'm ready to do. And that should be, you know, he understands that. He knows that. He didn't see the video. And when you're knocking everybody out like that, you're going to have concerns as a fighter.
Australia have taken complete control of the first test against South Africa in Durban after day 3, resuming with a lead of 189, a half-century from opener Cameron Bancroft helped the tourists take that advantage beyond the 400 mark. Captain Steve Smith also chipping in, so South Africa now have a mountain to climb. Australia finishing the day 213 for 9 in their second innings. That's a lead of 402 runs. England have taken a 2-1 lead in their best-of-5 ODI series with New Zealand after a thrilling match in Wellington. The hosts set just 235 of victory, and despite a century from their captain, Kane Williamson, the Black Caps fell just short. Game 3 is in Dunedin on Wednesday. Marcel Hirscher has won the Men's World Cup giant slalom title with a race to spare at Granska Gora in Slovenia. The Olympic champion from Austria dominated the penultimate event of the season. It's given him an unbeatable points standings over the Norwegian rival Henrik Kristoffersen. It's Hirscher's 4th successive giant slalom title and 5th in total. Only Ingemar Stenmark won the trophy more times with 8. And that's all your sport for now.
Thanks very much, Hugh. Now, whoever is victorious at the Oscars on Sunday, there's no doubt the ceremony will be very different to previous years. The exposure of Harvey Weinstein and the Me Too campaign have seen to that. Will Gompertz has been to talk to young artists and technicians to find out how they view the future.
I just have to figure out, how do I see this in your...
We're on set with a group of postgraduate students from the highly respected USC School of Cinematic Arts in Los Angeles. They're making a film for this post-Weinstein era that explores how an encounter between a young aspiring actress and a powerful male producer can quickly result in blurred lines being crossed.
Can I have somebody sit in? I have plenty of stories of my own work in Hollywood that are in line with the Me Too movement, and I wanted to, that's the area I know the most about, and so I wanted to focus on the story and the business that I know most about.
What do I have to do to get what I want?
Do you think things are changing?
I'm remaining cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
I do think that the pendulum has swung in the other direction, and I think it needs to find its way in the middle where we can make some significant change, because right now it's sort of, you know, it's a bit of a panic situation.
Let me out.
At this point, what worries me is still people being judged for speaking up, because it's such a gray area, and because you don't want to build a bad reputation for yourself when you're starting up your career, especially because it's such a financially risky industry to go into. If you say the wrong thing or you paint something in the wrong light that jeopardizes your well-being,
Yeah.
that's the scariest part.
Yeah. So how do you change that?
We're trying to figure that out.
The 360, could we add extra rotation so we land on the other side?
You know, it's because all this stuff's kind of happening as we speak. How long is it going to take to turn the tanker around?
Oh my gosh. Probably a while.
What does a while look like?
I mean, I would hope that by the time that my career's ending, that it would be maybe a little bit more equal, but I'm not sure if that's realistic.
Wow. So you think it's at least like a 40-year turnaround?
I think so.
All right, and sound.
The Time's Up campaigners won't be happy with that. They're lobbying for equal male-female representation on film sets within 2 years. That's going to require some serious
action.
Will Gompertz, BBC News, Hollywood.
And we are at the Oscars on Sunday, so tune in for full coverage. You've been watching BBC World News Today. I'm Duncan Golostani. Thanks for your company.